Premier League's two best teams go head-to-head in the League Cup final on Sunday. Arsenal versus Manchester City. This is Tactics Exposed Team Talk, and as always, we'll be answering 3 tactical questions from you guys about the big game. Dino, nice to see you again, mate. Let's get straight in to question number 1. This has come in on your socials, at Dino Decides, of course. How does Eberechi Eze get the better of Rodri? Not an easy thing to do. Easier nowadays maybe than it once was. Talk to us.
Yeah, it's really interesting, this. And this, for me, will be one of the matchups that decides the final, because it's, Rodri, Ballon d'Or, but the man of the moment is Eze, isn't he? And it's actually been quite a change to how Arteta has done things. And we've talked a lot this season, for those of you who've watched us all year, about the difference between the 2/8s of Arsenal and whether it should be a 10 or whether Eze should be playing on the left or coming inside. And just to explain that very quickly, the way they played against Leverkusen, the way it adapted against Everton in recent weeks, is that Eze is playing as a bona fide 10 now. It's not where Ødegaard was here, with Declan Rice going into that twin 8 position and Zubimendi being the single pivot. It's much more been, let's have our security with a double pivot of Rice and Zubimendi, with Eze being able to play in there and be more free. Now, that's very simple when the pitch is open wide like that, okay? It's very easy to explain. But basically, it does mean as well that Eze has a responsibility alongside whoever plays up front to be in that 4-4-2 defence shape on the press that Arteta likes. He's got better at it in recent weeks. But obviously, the main reason is this. So, can you open up the field so you have these spaces in here?
Is this Arsenal?
This is Arsenal. So what they'll want to happen is to desperately try and get... City will press on. Look, we know that, okay? Let's explain just for a moment Pep Guardiola's shape. So all the season we've talked about a 3-2-5, yeah?
Yep.
We've talked about that 3-2-5 shape where teams, it's including City, will go into a 3 at the back. A fullback might invert into there or even into there and end up in a 3-2-5 shape. But what City have been doing is almost trying to get it to be a 6.
Well, yeah.
You know, and because the reason for that, just very quickly, and I know I'm going to go ultra nerdy on you here, right? We talk about passing lanes, okay? So if you've got 4 at the back, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lanes to go through. But then what happens is teams will go, okay, we'll drop one of our holding midfielders back in to that shape to make it a back 5, or they'll play 3 centre-backs with wing-backs. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lanes to get into. So City put 1 there, they put 1 there. Bernardo Silva normally goes into 1 there, and then it becomes that, and Rodri becomes the single pivot. So then you end up in a 3-1-6 shape, okay? Arsenal won't be frightened of that. Arsenal will actually be thinking that's where we'll get our joy. One side, one of the wingers, potentially Martinelli or Trossard, will be the one that goes back to do that job there and try and make sure you're not overloaded this side. That means everybody else can come across. You can leave potentially Bukayo Saka here to cause a big problem, and then to answer the question, leave Eberechi Eze there to cause a big problem. Because if you've got Zubimendi or Rice doing the defensive screening job across here, if the other one's dropped in to track the runner, if Rice goes with Bernardo Silva, let's say, then look at this for Eze. That's where he's going to come into that position there. Arsenal either win it back, or Raya gets it, or Kepa gets it, and then into Eze it goes, and away he goes, and joining up with whoever plays up front. So actually, weirdly, the key thing is make sure you've got the defensive numbers and shape right so that you can free up Eze to run off Rodri. Because we know what City do. They'll come right up in here with the centre-backs to keep playing passes. Eventually, Rodri will get drawn into a passing lane here, and that's when you've got your attackers, Zubimendi or Rice, and Eze to spring that going the other way.
Now, all of that makes perfect sense, Dino. One thing I would say, just sort of declaring that I'm going to be nerdy this time. Everyone's been expecting that for the last 2 years, mate, so I wouldn't worry about it. Well, as soon as you moved the City defenders up then, that sort of light bulb went off in my head, because I was like, yeah, that's more what it'll look like. It all looks nice and easy when you were describing it before, when the City defenders are back here. They're not going to be there, are they? So it's easy to describe it like that, but how are Arsenal going to play out from there? Because one of the things that City do so well, obviously when they've got the ball, and they're sort of passing it and recycling it constantly as they do, it's frustrating, you feel like they're always going to score. But also, when the other team, if they do win the ball back or intercept the pass, they're suffocated and swarmed immediately. It's not as easy to play out to Eze for Arsenal, is it? How are they going to do that?
It's not. And so let's use Real Madrid as the example from the Champions League game last week. So Arsenal can almost copy, I think, the tactics that Arbeloa played in the Bernabeu, 3-0 to Real Madrid, and Man City committed too many players forward. And it's hard to criticise that, isn't it? Because, as I say, you get into that position there, and the Real Madrid central midfield players were doing that drop job. But then, in that game against Man City, Real Madrid did it, and also in the Arsenal-Leverkusen game, Arsenal did it. And it's occupying that sort of empty space where, as you say, right, let's just say the Arsenal centre-forward, whether that's Gyokeres or Havertz, comes back in here, then if the centre-back wants to be free in that zone there...
Sorry, what's the empty space? Who's occupying what?
So there's an empty space here.
Right.
Okay, so if they're all committing on... I know this is quite tight in here, but if they're all pushing on, there's an empty space in here. And that's where Eze, if you're brave enough to say to him, you don't have to track a runner, if they're man v man everywhere else, all he has to really do is make sure that if the ball gets switched across, that he can get across to that area there.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to actually mark him. He can just hang in the space in between so that, let's say Rodri gets the ball from Aït-Nouri or whoever it is out wide, and then they try and recycle the ball round the outside, you've got enough time to get across there. But then if you do win the ball back and you're in that half space in between, you're the one that sends the threat going the other way. And against Leverkusen, Trossard did it once from around about this position. Declan Rice did it once from around about this position, where the ball was fired into Eze. And what that will mean is, naturally, defenders will go, oh, I don't fancy that. I don't fancy that. And then it has two effects. It opens the space up there and gives you even more space between the lines. And then you've got a centre forward who's pushing the line back.
So just back to the question then, Dino, before we move on, we've got to get on to question number 2. In an instance like that, you've got Eze in quite a lot of space there. Rodri is over there. Is the hope from Arsenal then that Rodri gets involved in Man City passing moves?
Precisely that. And that's when you can be at your most dangerous, when you actually don't have much of the ball. I think Arsenal, for a spell against Leverkusen when they scored the 2 goals, were around about 40% possession. You know, and we've talked about this a lot in the year, and it's often against Arsenal that's the case where teams are more dangerous. But in this, it's Manchester City. We know, and we talked about, there was an episode we did about the 6th man run before, where the fullback moves in.
Wolves away.
That's it. Yeah, very good. And then Núñez is the man who makes the 6-man run, and then it opens the space for Reinders. So fantastic. If they do that against Arsenal, it can be dangerous, but you are playing against the best defence in the league. But it also makes Arsenal dangerous the other way. So where I've got them set up there, you've got a space here and a space there. And if Eze and Saka can occupy those spaces, look at Rodri there. He's never going to be able to get across. Like, critics will say, all right, yes, people will go, oh, yeah, he's just going to come in there and he's going to come in there. Man v man there, ball over the top for a runner as well. I like it. I like it like that. And I think it just depends on how brave Eze is and how brave Arteta is in saying to Eze, it's okay, don't track him all the way back.
That's the way Dean likes it.
Yes,
question number 2 then, Dino. This is quite straightforward. Should Havertz or Gyokeres start? Pretty straightforward question.
Is it straightforward though? It's a simple question.
Is it a simple answer, Dino?
Yeah, again, I think I said this before a couple of weeks ago. This is where these guys earn their money, okay? Because I've left that shape there. Yeah. The managers where they earn their money. I've left that shape there just for a reason. But first of all, Gyokeres has obviously done really well in recent weeks. He's sort of stepped it when he needed to as well. It was a question as we got to the new year of, was he going to be good enough? And the last couple of months, he scored a lot of goals and been in a lot of goal involvements, including the Dauman goal the other day, where he's really come to the fore again. But Havertz is a big game man, isn't he? Champions League final man. You know, that's the sort of dilemma that we've got. And the tactically dilemma is, so following on from what we talked about there with Eze, okay? Let's say, for example, that again, Arsenal sort of copy the Fede Valverde move that Real Madrid did, okay? So which is that Valverde came right over here when City went into this shape, right? Which meant that either the left centre-back or Nico O'Reilly, who it was in this position here, is a bit stuck. Do they go, OK, let's go into our 6-man attacking shape and leave a centre-back here, which is the run over the top? As it turned out in that shape, it was Nico O'Reilly who dropped back and Valverde beat him in there. So Saka needs to be brave and hold this side. But then if you've got Zubimendi against Rodri and Eza occupying a free space, you'd probably want Gyokeres here.
Yeah.
Because that is the direct ball, okay? That is the one into space. However, the alternative...
And that's assuming that Trossard and or Martinelli have done that defensive winger job over there.
Because if you are inviting City up, then you're thinking direct passes in behind, which plays into Gyokeres, okay? So that... If that's the way that Arteta thinks he wants to play, the answer to this question is that Gyokeres starts. However, the other thing that I really noticed in the Man City-Real Madrid game, and I know I keep going back to that, but when a manager like Pep Guardiola loses 3-0 and gets completely tactically outclassed, it's quite a blueprint for other teams to follow. So again, let's just show, they got into a back three shape City, okay? And they had Rodri as that single pivot, and then there's this diamond shape that they create, okay? And some very good tactical minds and analysts in Europe are calling it El Nuevo Diamante, okay? So the new diamond shape, okay? So it's not the diamond midfield like we've seen before, like that, where you've got that diamond in there. You've got two forwards beside each other, you've got the wide men, and you've got the midfielders pushing into that shape, and you've got the single pivot. So you've got the diamond shape there, okay? So that's what City did against Real Madrid. What Real Madrid did, left Fede Valverde over here. Immediate problem, space over here. They played two false forwards, false nines. They didn't play a man up front. So they had Vinicius, who actually was starting over on the left, but in defensive shape came into this position.
Yep.
And then they've got their four at the back, the two holding midfield players, and the two wide players like that. So essentially almost like a 4-4-2, you would say, right?
Yep.
But what it meant is then the holding midfielder chases the City runner back in to make that back five, okay? The other wide man comes into that position there. They sacrifice Valverde, and then these two players come in as false nines to come and receive the ball into feet when they're playing out, okay? And again, you see that straight away. Rodri's got a 2v1 that he doesn't want, okay? What happens then? These guys kind of think, I've got to go and jump. I've got to go and be the centre-backs who go out into that position. There's the space in behind. So, again, you might think Gyokeres, but actually the more natural players at doing that would be Eza and Havertz. And then create that space for Saka to be the one who bursts in there. Or if it's Trossard or Martinelli that can break out of there, they're the one who gets in that space around the outside.
So, to boil it down then, Dino, if it all depends on who Mikel Arteta wants to be the runners, his central men or his wide men. If it's a centre man, it's Gyokeres who starts. If it's the wide men, it's Havertz.
Yeah, and if he gambles on the fact that he thinks that Diaz and probably Gay are going to come to feet and try and squeeze the game into that position there, then he'll probably want Havertz and Eza, because they're the guys, we call it the rope-a-dope we've talked about before, bringing a defender with you into that space. Havertz much more natural at doing that with his back to goal than Gyokeres is. So yeah, it's a tactical decision. It's not just about Havertz being the big game player or Gyokeres being the man in form. It's about how he wants to play out and hurt City in that middle phase.
Happy days, mate. That Spanish accent you did, by the way, couldn't be more obvious. You're from Kent.
Absolutely, yeah. Bang average.
Question number, Trez. Should Arteta push his fullbacks on or hold them back? Now, this taps into something we've spoken about recently on Tactics Exposed and Team Talk. Arsenal have employed two different tactics with this. Tottenham away is the game I'm thinking of in particular, where Mystic Skog struck again because you called it before the game, when your theory was that actually the best way of playing against low blocks is to hold more players back.
Yes, absolutely. And
talk to us again.
Yeah, so again, it's and I'm really pleased that I'm now getting questions on the YouTube comments and in my socials at Dino Decides. Don't forget, I've done it there.
Well done.
Yeah. And that people are recognising that these are decisions you make before games. I don't get them all right. I know I'm very flattered by the comments, but it's because you get that decision from a manager and how that will impact an opposition. So far I've shown it all in this half of the field. There will be quite a lot of the game played down here, okay? So when Manchester City are in that back four shape they get into, obviously Rodri comes back in, he'll then get Bernardo Silva in there, and then they'll come back into a shape with probably Semenya and Haaland as the two players who are left to be the press, okay? Who Pep picks out wide is anybody's guess at the moment. I wouldn't like to lay any money on that.
Right.
But then, obviously, you get Arsenal come forward where you'll have Gyokeres, Eza, Martinelli or Trossard, maybe even Noni Madueke if he springs a surprise, most likely Saka, and then you've got Zubimendi and Rice providing that sort of rest defence behind the attack. But what inevitably happens with Arsenal, and has done a lot of the season, and to explain what we talked about earlier in the year, is let's say this is Timber and that's Calafiori, okay? So let's use Calafiori as an example because he's a bit more wild, is that Arsenal will go into that rest defence shape of 3 there, and then Calafiori will go in to be a 10 in there, which then means it was Ødegaard a lot, but then Eza, and that's where Arsenal get their 3-2-5 attacking shape from. What was happening then a lot is defences are going like that, parking the bus against Arsenal, and therefore then you get Jury and Timber going here as well to get 6 attackers into that shape, and then we get our traffic jam shape where it's very difficult to play through, loads and loads of players, everybody drops in, and it's like that. So my example against Spurs was don't go in there, Timber. Don't go in there. It was actually Hincapie who played in that game. And so they drop into that position there. So you've almost got a 2-4-4 shape.
Yep.
That brings players out, which means Eza gets the space there or there, Saka gets the space there, and you get then the overlapping fullback round the outside. So this now is going to be a question of should he push them forward or hold them back?
Eza had the game of his life against Tottenham.
He did.
In that
he
system,
did, absolutely. And also it benefited...
in that system.
That system. It also benefited Gyokeres.
Yep.
Because where before you think, well, let's say that Saka comes wide and the fullback goes in, Gyokeres really wants to make that run into there, in behind. And no, he's got somebody in the way. They've got players blocking their own passing lanes in that position.
It's one of those classic examples, isn't it, Dino? And we spoke about it at the time of like the guy behind you at West Ham or Tottenham syndrome who's always going... throw men forward, get forward, pass it forward, play it forward, sort of with a bit of a lack of understanding that actually that's not always the answer to just cram people in the box.
Because these guys are so tactically aware, they're so fast and physical that if you, as I talked about with the 6 passing lanes with Manchester City, that does create an extra passing lane for City, but they're narrower. And so that's easier then for players to go 4 or 5 yards either way and block off that space. And that's what's been happening against Arsenal. So What I think is the issue that has happened with Arsenal because, and again, they're playing Manchester City this week, so this might be slightly more difficult, but because they end up getting sort of camped in that half, it ends up that they've got that traffic jam problem. So I think the scenario here is that, look, it's a big decision. Ben White or Timber, Calafiori or Hincapie. I mean, Miles Lewis-Skelly likes a game against Man City and Erling Haaland, don't forget as well, but I'm not quite sure he's going to get the nod in the final. For me, it's about arrival, okay? So what they're going to have to do is actually hang in this position here. So let's move Gyokeres and Eza, assuming they're the front two, into that position. And then we've got Hincapie or Calafiori here, and then we've got Timber or White here. That shape there, you'll see that quite a lot. So for me, it's arrival time. Right. So if Saka goes in, your arrival time is round the outside, and Timber and White can both do that. I've said before, I quite like Ben White from that position because his timing of his run is better. If Calafiori just walks in there, that's a problem. That creates a traffic jam. If he arrives in there for a through ball and he's going on, straight away that defence is pushed back, and then that's where Eza comes to life in the D.
So, should Arteta push his fullbacks on or hold them back?
I think in this, because of what we talked about with Saka being a runner in behind, with potentially Gyokeres being a runner in behind, and then Eza being a free man, you hold them back and you say to them that only, like an almost old traditional, only one attacks. So we're going to attack up the right. The other fullback stays, and this fullback arrives when the ball arrives. And look, you can score goals as fullbacks from that position as well. If Gyokeres or Havertz go in, Saka goes in to score, and this fullback arrives, that's almost like a wing-back goal, and you're in that 3-2-5 attacking shape. So it's almost like hold, and then go, but not both of you at the same time.
Brilliant stuff, as always, mate. Thanks for watching Tactics Exposed, Team Talk, and Dino will be back on Monday with Tactics Exposed to review Sunday's big game, but I'm on holiday.